Gods Will Be Watching has many great ideas, but it completely misses the mark with almost every one of them. The game tries to present complex moral quandaries, but then erodes their value with endless repetition. In an effort to make its various situations tense and thrilling, Gods Will Be Watching instead destroys everything it wants to accomplish through randomization and poor design. All of the game's problems can be seen in the very first mission. The character you control, Sergeant Burden, has gone undercover in a terrorist group known as Xenolifer. The group has broken into a science lab and is attempting to hack into Imperial computers for valuable intel. Your role is to oversee the hacking, keep 4 hostages in line, and ensure that security never gets close enough to apprehend you. It's a lot to handle, and there's room for a variety of approaches. You can pacify hostages by talking to them, kick them so they remain obedient, or even kill one to scare the others. There's no binary morality in Gods Will Be Watching. You're not necessarily aiming to be good or evil, and the game doesn't reward you for either approach. Instead, you're only trying to accomplish the mission using whatever means necessary. It's admirable that the game pursues ambiguity, but everything ends up being too vague as a result. For example, it's hard to know what exactly will set the hostages off. In the half dozen or so times we played the first mission, the hostages would sometimes stay relatively calm throughout, and other times would successively run for their lives for no discernible reason. After finally completing the mission, it was hard to tell what we did right versus the other failed attempts. It makes sense that the hostages are unpredictable, as they would be in a real situation, but it also makes victory seem like luck, rather than the result of a calculated approach. Perhaps it had nothing to do with luck at all, and there was always a specific reason for why things happened the way they did. If that's the case, it's so hard to discern that it feels random even if it isn't. Gods Will Be Watching throws so much at you that a lot of valuable information gets buried, leading to nothing but frustration as you do the same scenarios again and again. Worst of all is the 5th mission, where you're stranded in a desert with a group of soldiers. Your goal is to find your home base, located somewhere in the randomly generated wasteland. As you explore, you have to make sure that everyone remains hydrated, well-rested, and that you have enough ammo to take on any hostile forces. Additionally, scouts must be sent ahead of the group to see if there are any enemy bases nearby. If you don't diligently use the scouts and happen to run into an enemy base on accident, it's game over. Scouts are essential, and it feels practically impossible to make it through the desert without them. However, if you do send them out, there's a small chance they won't return. At 2 different times, we were nearly an hour into the mission when both our scouts disappeared. Without anyone to guide the group, eventually we stumbled upon an enemy base and had to restart the entire thing. Despite doing everything right up until that point, in both instances there was water and ammo to spare. We lost to what seemed like nothing more than a roll of the dice. It's one thing for a game to be challenging, but Gods Will Be Watching can potentially waste your time. What makes the infuriating missions even more unbearable is that your choices have no consequences. During most missions, your method will determine whether or not important characters live or die. If they do die, it's hardly anything to be concerned about because they'll appear alive and well in the next mission, as if nothing happened. The reason for this is that some missions won't work if certain characters aren't around, an excuse that undercuts every single action you do. If your decisions have no lasting impact, it's difficult to stay invested in what's going on. Characters become tools rather than human beings, making the game clinical and often boring. Gods Will Be Watching strives to be meaningful. The story ruminates on how hard it is to find purpose in a world where things are often outside of our control. Many may never get a chance to appreciate that message, since the game ruins its own potential. At no point does Gods Will Be Watching make the struggle worth the effort.